I'm very excited to talk to Will and Amy Buchholtz. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we really wanted to have you guys on the show because I think a lot of people have the dream of doing what you guys have done. You've set up all these different side hustles, specifically real estate being one of the bigger ones, and that's turned into a property management business and all these other things. Can we start there and then work up?
So we got married in 2013. We started renting right away an apartment, and I'm a dentist. So you're probably thinking, why is a dentist on here? Well, I went down to Miami and I was taking a course, and there was a lot of young dentists in this course. And there was one guy who was kind of off by himself, and this guy was in his mid to late 60s. And we thought, wow, this is so cool that you're taking a dental course on implants this late in your career. You must really love dentistry, right? Well, it turns out he actually didn't. He didn't even want to be there. He was doing it because he had to. And I thought that was just kind of sad. I didn't want to be in that position late in my career where I was forced to be working. And that's when I learned about passive income in real estate. And that brought us to actually purchasing a rental while we were still renting. So rather than buying a house or something like that, we actually purchased a rental, and then using that cash flow, we used that cash flow to start building a duplex that we ended up moving into and house hacking.
Okay. And then what made you exactly think like real estate is the angle? Like what was that first initial step?
When I was young, my parents ended up getting a divorce, and my dad actually moved into a duplex. So whenever I look at these rentals, I think of myself and I think, would I live there? Could I see myself living there? So I do think it gives a little bit of a unique advantage.
I think it's really cool that the both of you are renting. And instead of, this is very unusual, instead the first thing that you actually bought was another rental, not necessarily a single family home to move into.
Well, we rented for 3 years, and in the process of that, we bought a duplex because we were headhunting, and we found someone that was selling a duplex that made sense. We didn't feel like we needed to move in for it right away because the cash flow was so good. We didn't want to ruin what was happening. So we kept it there, and then I found opportunity to build a duplex. We found land, and I got it's a funny scene to see me, my dad, and my parents building a duplex under 4 months, but he had recently retired, and I wanted to learn more about building because I've always been interested in real estate, so why not start there?
You guys are at 58 doors right now. So,
Yep.
So it started with just that little duplex when you guys were renting. So what made you guys on the same page? Because I find a lot of times, most of the time, that it just isn't the case.
So we met with a financial advisor early on who wanted to basically invest into the market and kind of take all of our control out of it. That didn't sit well with us. We wanted to be in control. Giving all that control away to someone else, we both agreed that just fundamentally, we did not want to do that. We think we have a little bit more control than, just kind of, going into the market and just letting someone else manage it.
I think there is a compatibility factor in play for sure.
I'm sure you have friends that have learned from you and are doing things. What advice do you give them, really?
If I was going to give someone advice to get into it, I would tell them to reach out to people that are involved in it and read books on it, listen to the podcast, listen to the YouTube videos. And if you still have an interest after you've done all your due diligence and you've done all your research, then jump right in and give it a go. But what we find is a lot of people just don't really want to have to do the work that comes involved in real estate. We both enjoy working. If something breaks, Amy gets excited about it. I mean, she knows how to fix appliances. She knows how to fix all this stuff, so she gets excited. And
I have tons of friends that are dentists. I have tons of friends that own dental practices. And one of the things that a lot of people may not realize is that they're among the highest tax.
Right.
You can be in the 50-60% range, but the real estate, the depreciation, the cost segregation, the bonus depreciation, all the things that the government lets you have as a result of owning housing, there's significant tax benefits that can offset the high income earner. Can you touch on that a little bit?
As a W-2 employee, and if you are in that upper tax bracket, you can actually do what's called a cost segregation analysis, which is what we're currently doing on one of our 18 units. And then that can be considered, you can do that depreciation off of the gains that a W-2 employee is making. So Amy is a real estate professional. I'm a dentist. We can use the depreciation that she's doing with the real estate against my gains as a dentist.
So everybody understands cost segregation means that you can take personal property, let's just call it refrigerators, appliances, and you can accelerate the depreciation quicker. So than the normal property, which is in multifamily 27 and a half years. So you can take it, you have to deduct the land, and then you can actually do a cost segregation. Basically the components, and that increases what's called a non-operational expense. And they can use those losses, or what they call NOLs, or net operating losses, and offset the marital income. And I think this is an important piece that most people don't know. So Will can go on slaying it as a dentist, making all kinds of cash over here. And thank God for Amy. She's over there, doubling their income almost. Well, not necessarily doubling it, just keeping it from actually going to the IRS.
That's a good question, Will. Do you own the building that you're practicing in right now?
That's one of the 58 doors that technically is 50-50 with my partner, but all the other units Amy and I own.
So can you explain to people listening that maybe have their own business how buying the building helps you?
So on the tax side, just like any other real estate property, you can depreciate the building over time. But what you can do is you can also pay yourself rent, and you can avoid some of the taxes by paying yourself that rent, which is a really nice way of mitigating the taxes.
What you want is each asset that you have in its own LLC, or limited liability company. You want them sitting independently, because things can happen with renters and slip and falls and all kinds of things. You can get sued. So what you want all those into different LLCs. They're basically entities, legal entities, that you put your assets in. So they're all broken up. The pain in the butt is, of course, is that you have to do tax returns for all those partnerships, but they're all broken up and they're all independent. So the dental office would be one of those partnerships, and then Will and Amy as renters would pay the partnership rent. And then that rent would be the income for that one LLC, but then you have lots of expenses to offset it, including depreciation. And so that becomes then a loss that offsets Will's income, as with his W-2 job.
But I'm sure you've made some mistakes with tenants along the way. And I don't necessarily mean moving in a bad tenant, or maybe you've done that, but just mistakes in general. So I think some people could benefit from knowing what those were.
Oh, you always get thrown for some loops. There's always mistakes out there. Pay attention to your gut, because one mistake that didn't end up in an eviction, but it took a month out of my time, was they wanted to pay with, a cashier's check. And I'm like, this is how we do it. You take the money directly to the bank. It's deposited. I don't touch it. We're good to go. And just them throwing little wrenches in your system that you put at play. And with the past one with the cashier's check, they threw a wrench in where I had already signed someone a month, and they just said, no, we're staying for one more month. And so then I had to find housing for that other individual, and it just got chaotic.
But it was so great to have both you guys on. I think you really resonate with people.